Gone are the days when we would have heated conversations around the magnitude of the climate problem and just how swiftly we needed to act. Right now, we see in our daily lives devastating consequences of climate change, particularly in vulnerable regions and communities. Our world has unfortunately become so complex that a different way of doing things is required if change is to be delivered fast at scale, meeting the climate urgency. The underlying causes of the climate problem are deeply systemic. There remains a structural imbalance in global climate governance and financing that does marginalize the most impacted. Worsening these unfortunate realities, the global financial architecture that remains poorly aligned with the urgency and scale of the crisis itself, with adaptation and loss and damage financing often slow, limited, conditional, and difficult to access, especially for grassroots communities and organizations. The disconnect between high-level commitments and local realities and actions does undermine responsiveness to the needs of local communities, which does in turn limit the potential for transformational change. That is why ACT's climate work interacts with seas and power and politics. The alliance holds the right arguments that respond to multiple crises, competing geopolitical interests, and the seemingly wavering multilateralism. In 2024, our advocacy work focused on key major outcomes and processes whereby we delivered landmark engagement. ACT Climate Justice Program embarked on a series of global influencing efforts that included COP29, whereby our efforts were felt in the final new collective quantified goal, and we also had our efforts being felt in the global goal in the gender decisions, and we ensured that our presence was there in all expert workshops that contributed to the conclusion of the NCQG in 2024. Research and evidence has to be part of our advocacy. We cannot do advocacy without it being grounded on research and real life experiences of communities and of the people we serve. And therefore, we prioritized building from ground up. We delivered responsive and critical pieces of evidence that buttressed our engagement that year. We did produce landmark member-centered study on loss and damage, which then strengthened ACT's evidence base on the topic. We released various reports on rights-based approaches to climate programming, focusing on Asia Pacific, Africa, and the Latin America and the Caribbean regions. We as well in the continent of Africa did a little bit more of research and delivered products around establishing the station finance in Uganda, products on loss and damage, a report which did focus on programming and policies in Malawi, a research report on assessment of climate smart agriculture in Kenya, and we also delivered a research report on the extent to which we have seen faith-based perspectives being taken up in different avenues, which did aim to support faith actors and faith leaders' engagements at national level with key government institutions. We have to mention the fact that our work on faith leaders is growing and interest, and ACT Alliance is positioning our climate work in a manner that would indeed see that faith leaders become part and parcel of our faith outreach, our prophetic voice to global climate decision making. In 2024, ACT Climate Work did engage in collaboration where we co-organized various meetings of great importance to the climate processes in Africa and globally. For example, we co-organized during the ACT General Assembly a thematic discussion titled A Not So Common Agenda to link to the Agenda 2030, the Pact for the Future, the climate commitments. We also convened regional consultations and dialogues. In Africa, for instance, we co-hosted the African Experts Meeting on Climate Finance and Adaptation. In Latin America and the Caribbean, we formed the first ever delegation of the Alliance to the CBD, Convention on Biodiversity, COP16, and published a region-facing public statement on climate justice and biodiversity. In MENA, we put together the Faith Actors in Climate and Environmental Justice Hub, a network of faith actors and faith leaders working on climate justice in the region. We went ahead in Asia and worked closely with the Asia Pacific Climate Change Consortium to onboard faith asks into various climate processes of the region. Importantly, 2024 was the year where we strengthened our forum facing work much than we had done the previous year by ensuring that our forums were at the center of maintaining key relationships with important negotiating blocks in different parts of the world. We as well made sure that we continued to advance climate leadership by supporting regional and national forums in implementing advocacy on climate adaptation, on climate fair climate just transition, for example, in Argentina. And we as well continued in the same year to support localization. ACT Alliance Climate Program has got a localization model, which is the locally led climate fund, whereby in 2024 we continued supporting the building of resilience and driving impactful advocacy at national level in 5 countries. 2024 was an important year as well in strengthening our youth and movement building work. We did ensure that youth presence was not only represented but felt during the General Assembly, whereby young people co-hosted with their secretariat a pre-assembly climate day, where 2 of the young people who participated were also represented in the COP29 delegation. We ensured that we, as well as a climate program, enhanced and advanced conversations on cross-programmatic learning by convening discussions on holistic and integrated programming. Finally, COP29 was the key moment where ACT's strong communications and campaigns work was put to the fore. We organized media and public engagement during that key climate moment. We did link technical advocacy work with public mobilization, aiming at amplifying messaging that would inform the discourse at COP29. We successfully ran 3 climate campaign stunts at COP29 with 3 major side events during the same COP moment, and did indeed push climate justice messaging through different platforms, member platforms, global and regional media, where we garnered 21 media mentions. Our positioning aims to address present systemic practices amount to failures and lapses in tackling the climate crisis. And that's why, as a climate program, we hope our partnership with you will coming year unite us to forge ahead in challenging status quo that has persistently disenfranchised vulnerable communities. And our hope is that we get strongly into more action. Thank you.